Spain is a country on the up. The past 40 years have been the country's best ever. Democracy has been stabilized, Basque terrorism defeated, and the rare transition to high-income status achieved. Public infrastructure is largely recent and therefore excellent. Life expectancy, now 84 years, is projected to be the world's highest by 2040. True, the average Spaniard spends that life in a low-quality flat, often in a Soviet-looking apartment block, on a net median annual income of around 16,000 euros. But improvement continues, with permanent contracts burgeoning. Unemployment, so long the national shame, is at its lowest since 2008. However, Spain hides a secret at its heart, an empty, quiet expanse that few tourists ever venture to see. While bustling hubs like Madrid, Barcelona and Seville capture the world's attention, the vast interior of Spain, known as the Empty Spain or España Vacía, tells a different story, one of rural exodus, abandoned villages and sweeping landscapes that stretch endlessly under the Iberian sun. This sparsely populated region covering much of Spain's centre is a stark contrast to the lively urban centres, offering a glimpse into a forgotten side of the country where time seems to stand still. According to Spain's Ministry for Territorial Policy, 90% of the country's population, about 42 million people, is packed into 1,500 towns and cities that occupy 30% of the land. The other 10%, around 4.6 million people, occupy the remaining 70%, giving a population density of barely 14 inhabitants per square kilometre. The average rural citizen must now travel 8 miles to access basic services such as ATMs, hospitals, nursery schools, supermarkets and libraries, compared to 3 miles in Germany and Italy and 5 miles in France. So how the hell did they allow this to happen? And is there a realistic solution available? Well, to get into that, we need to rewind 60 years or so. Without retelling the entire political landscape in Spain since the 1940s, let's focus on who General Franco was. Franco rose to power during the Spanish Civil War, which began in 1936, when he led a coup against the country's left-wing Republican government. A 3-year battle for control of Spain ensued, pitting Franco's nationalist rebels, backed by fascist Italy and Nazi Germany, against the Soviet-backed Republicans. The nationalists won the conflict, which ended in 1939 with hundreds of thousands of dead. A shift in economic planning under General Franco saw country dwellers move to the cities and the coast, where a new industry called turismo, or tourism to me and you, was taking off. Few cases illustrate the potency of tourism as a form of international relations better than the experience of Franco's Spain. Historically shunned by all but the most intrepid travelers, Spain became a major hub of post-war European leisure, absorbing a massive current of vacationers in search of seaside pleasures and an escape from staid routine. After Franco's death in 1979, King Juan Carlos succeeded him as head of state and led the transition from dictatorship to democracy. For decades, the growing geographical imbalance was ignored as newly democratic Spain prospered and wealth-generating jobs were created in big cities and coastal strips. The villages were simply left behind. A case in point is Spain's high-speed rail, credited with boosting tourism and commerce while reducing traffic congestion and accidents, as well as serving as a model for American states like California. The AVE system, that's Alta Velocidad España, or High Spanish Velocity, an acronym that aptly means bird, is one of the jewels of economic development in the post-Franco era, second in size only to China's. If you catch an AVE train from Madrid's Atocha station, you'll be in downtown Barcelona in 2 hours and 30 minutes, a journey that was historically made overnight. From Spain's largest cities, Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia and Seville, high-speed trains fan out to the provincial capitals of Salamanca, Valladolid, Toledo and Girona, skipping most smaller towns in between. When plans for the AVE system were laid out in the late 1980s, the Spanish government went to great lengths to anticipate potential environmental effects, prevent the destruction of farmland and protect historical landmarks. For example, in Barcelona, a special tunnel was built to avoid upsetting the foundation of the famed Sagrada Familia Cathedral. However, not much thought appears to have been given to protecting rural communities from being cut off from the rest of the country. However, the solution may not be all that complicated. In recent years, hundreds of community groups have sprung up, demanding infrastructure and assistance for their forgotten corners of Spain. They've given rise to a political party and formed a nationwide political movement known as Empty Spain, or España Vacía. For those in the Empty Spain movement who have come to view immigration as a potential cure to the depopulation crisis, the recent arrival in Spain of 135,000 Ukrainian refugees is an opportunity not to be missed. Encouraged by a host of Spanish non-governmental organizations, some Ukrainians have begun to settle in the countryside. Despite the economic and cultural challenges, to say nothing of the trauma of escaping their war-torn country, some could not be happier to have found a home in some of Spain's most desolate and impoverished areas. In 1998, immigrants accounted for less than 2% of the Spanish population, but as of 2020, that figure had reached 15%, one of the highest in Europe, encouraged by some of the most progressive immigration policies in the EU. Other countries, including Canada, Germany, France, Italy, the United Kingdom, Sweden, and the Netherlands, have various forms of community-sponsored resettlement, but Spain is an ideal place to pilot projects like these of its massive unmet resettlement needs. However, the benefits of positive immigration do not stop at just filling Spain's empty centre. Spain has just passed the historical barrier of 21 million national insurance contributors, something that would have been impossible without foreign workers who account for 13% of the nation's pension pot. It is estimated that, to maintain its ever-growing welfare state, Spain needs to incorporate between 200,000 and 250,000 migrants a year into its labour market by 2050, and they've made a solid start. Since the start of the war in Ukraine, Emplo Spain has grown by 6.3% compared to 2% in France and Germany. That is backed up by data from Statista, which showed that the net migration of Ukrainian nationals to Spain in 2022 reached almost 86,000. Spain has a unique opportunity to revitalise its empty villages and combat rural depopulation by welcoming immigrants fleeing from conflict. By integrating these newcomers into the heart of its rural communities, Spain can breathe new life into regions that have long been struggling with declining populations. Offering incentives such as housing, employment opportunities, and community support can help people in need build new lives while contributing to the local economy and preserving the cultural heritage of these forgotten villages. This mutually beneficial approach not only addresses Spain's demographic challenges, but also provides a haven for those seeking stability and a fresh start. By embracing this opportunity, Spain can transform its rural landscape, creating vibrant, diverse communities that thrive on the resilience and spirit of those who have chosen to make a new home in Spain's beautiful yet often overlooked countryside.